Hello and welcome to Pale Reflections, a proud member of the Duff Network where we reflect on Wildbow's most righteous work as it releases. I'm Ruben Morehouse.
And I'm Elliot Diebold.
Infobells!
Oh, this again. Oh, fuck. I was wondering what this was going to be.
It's Ruben's birthday, everyone.
Happy birthday.
Where did you find this the audio clip? In our script, it just says, "And I'm Elliot Diebold, play sound clip," and I was so confused what this was going to be.
Yeah,
So
that's like the
weird.
first hit for Happy Birthday on YouTube, which is bizarre.
Perfect. No, it's the exact right video to use.
It feels like as close as they legally, because isn't like the actual Happy Birthday song like copywritten? So it's
I
like
think
that's
it used to be, but it's been like
I could have
legally
used the real thing.
decided or whatever that it's fine.
Oh, yeah. Happy birthday.
Yeah, thanks. 1 year older, 1 year closer to death.
That's the spirit.
Anywho, yeah, thanks. Thanks everyone for wishing me happy birthdays in the Discord where we are live as well.
Yeah, good segue. And it's not
Thanks.
just Ruben's birthday. We have some more exciting news.
Whoa.
It's everywhere this time. So in a few weeks, Ruben's going to be up here in person. So we've decided we're going to do a little video live stream instead of this regular audio recording.
Yeah. So instead of doing a regular live recording in the Discord, we're going to be doing a live recording on Twitch, and then we're going to have some extra stuff too. That's right, it's time for a live stream. It's all packed up 1.5, a bit paled up within the pale. So we're going to be testing out some of our stuff and just doing some fun activities, basically.
Yeah, it'll only be like 2 or 3 hours. We haven't actually figured out everything we're doing in it yet, but it'll be half live recording, half some small activities, just a bit of a test. I suppose as one teaser, we have acquired an air hockey table.
Yes. And of course, everyone at home may be wondering, Elliot, will we be having any brown milk?
Oh, I can order some. Yeah.
Wow. There you have it, folks. Now, I guess that's all we need to say.
Yeah. So I guess follow us on Twitter to get more updates on this, because it's still something we've only half figured out. We're probably announcing it a bit earlier than we should. But yeah, so we'll have more details on Twitter. If we need any audience participation beforehand or anything, that'll be the place we organize it.
Yeah. All right. And with that, should we get into the actual episode, Elliot?
Let's do it.
Okay. So we are going to start with Gone and Done at 17.4 with Lucy. Starting with Lucy and Wallace walking together after a quick shopping date, only to be surprised. Well, Wallace is surprised. Lucy kind of cracks it. That there is a party, a surprise welcome home party for Wallace. And everyone, asterisk, is invited.
It's a good thing we know Lucy has to tell the truth, because like if I didn't know that, she was giving off massive like, oh, I totally saw this coming like vibes.
Oh, you think she was just playing it cool?
I would have thought that if I didn't know better, having seen inside her head. But I mean, before I guess we get to the surprise party, we've got to talk about like just this awkward date moment, because there's a few of those this week. But like learning that Lucy wrote a list of conversation topics in preparation for this date was just so like hilariously humanizing.
It's so funny. And I love that she runs out of the non-dangerous conversation topics by the end. It's perfect. So she has to kind of gamble with which one's the least risky to start talking about of the things that I explicitly thought I shouldn't talk about.
Yeah, I love that she also made a list of topics not to talk about because they're too spicy.
Yeah.
Just the whole vibe is so just adorable.
Yeah, I thought it was really funny. There's this moment where they have a kiss and Wallace is like, "Oh, I really want to do that all afternoon," and Lucy says, "You should have just said so." And Wallace's response is, "I didn't get a chance because we were talking so much." And that really made me think, like, see, Lucy, maybe don't over prep so much. Just kind of play it cool, and it would have been fine.
It's a really good point. Yeah, she might have overdone it.
Anywho,
I suppose because the other angle to this, and this is sort of one of the big themes that's going to weave in and out of this chapter is Lucy's very much coming at this quote unquote date with this energy of like Wallace is the one who fucked up when he didn't write back to me and kind of ghosted me, but I'm coming at this with the energy of like reminding him why he should want to date me and also reminding myself why I want to date him. And it's just like if you think about like Arc 2 Lucy or Rook, like that is not the energy they would have brought to this. They would have been like trying to punish him or make him like make amends. So it feels like this really strong growth moment to me that Lucy is like now in a position where she can sort of give him a chance and spin it in this way of like proving like why she deserves better, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, obviously all three of the Kennetiers have had pretty strong growth arcs over the course of this story, but Lucy's to me is the one that is the strongest and the most wonderful, I suppose.
Yeah, it's just it's so nice that she's gotten to that spot where she can extend people that second chance, I guess.
Yeah, she's just awesome. She's the best Kennetier, and I'm glad you're coming around to my side on it.
We should also talk about like getting to the surprise party as a whole. So it's not because this is Wallace's birthday or anything. This whole party is just because somebody actually came back to town. Like what a cute but sad situation that is. That like somebody coming back to town is worthy of a party.
Yeah, it's you're right. It is sad, but I guess that's just where Kenneth's at.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not saying it's really surprising and or anything, but like, yeah, just that Kennet above is in such a bad spot that like this is sort of an excuse for a party, basically. Yeah, and I'm seeing that in chat right now. Yeah, it's like this is as much for them as it is for Wallace, really. And I mean, I remember like when Wallace first left, we were quite skeptical whether he'd even come back, and so far it seems like a good thing that he has.
Yeah. Yeah, so far. Seems good. Although, when I think about the fact that he like didn't contact anyone from Kennet and stuff, I feel like that's like the universe trying to get him to not come back.
Interesting. I wonder how much we should tinfoil on spirity reasons for why he came back, or whether that's overcooking it.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. I don't know. Maybe it is overcooking it. Anyway, inside the party, Wallace's mum tries to be very, very attentive, but he escapes from that, and she ends up kind of talking to/at Lucy, I guess.
Yeah, it's a bit awkward.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, I want to point out an interesting line that jumped out to me here on my second read. I'm going to read it out to you. You tell me what you think. "Come inside," Wallace's mum said, pressing her hands together in a praying gesture. The wrists bent far further than Lucy's ever could. "Just for a minute." Now, did that line give you the creeps on your second read through?
Not really.
The
I have no idea
wrists
where you're
bent
going with
far
this.
further than Lucy's ever could. Now, maybe that just means she's double jointed or, etc.
Yeah, I
But
think she
I'm
has
picturing
joint
like,
problems.
yeah, but I'm picturing like, some real exorcist level stuff with her wrists twisting around. So I think this line here is meant to imply to us that Wallace's mum is not actually, that she's got some spiritual stuff going on.
Oh, you think
Maybe
this
she's
is
a secret practitioner. Maybe she's a secret
Clint
other.
situation?
Yeah.
No, I mean,
Confirmed.
yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean like because we learn a few more sort of health problems that both Wallace and his mum have in this chapter, and I feel like that's a bit of a recurring. Like, oh man, there's been like comments about how they sort of lost the genetic lottery or whatever, and like I'm really starting to feel it. The more we see from Wallace, the more I'm like, oh, like this really is like this would be so hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely difficult stuff for sure. I don't know. Like, it's clearly just such a stressful situation for Wallace's mum. Like, there's obviously some stuff that we'll talk about there
Yeah.
between her and Lucy, but also, like, the line about her fainting from stress at one point, and like seeing how, she sees all of these. She sees this party basically as just a number of potential things that can harm Wallace, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's she's obviously overprotective and like overly anxious, but still, it's like you can kind of get it, you know?
Yeah, it's coming from a pretty sensible place in a way.
Yeah,
Like Wallace is legitimately at risk of a lot of stuff.
yeah,
Like the coat thing is a great example. Like he does seem to have some sort of sweat problem. I think it was hypohidrosis. So it was like like she's over worrying, but also it's coming from a pretty reasonable place at the same time. It's a tough line to walk. I can
mm,
see, and I think I get the vibe that she's somebody who's struggled with this so much that she just doesn't want that for Wallace. So it's also like a bit of projecting sort of thing going on where she doesn't want him to suffer like she often has. I assume.
yeah, 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 100%. I mean, yeah, it's a delicate situation, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. She's a bit overbearing, but it's coming from a pretty reasonable place. And that's where you get that vibe of like, Wallace is really frustrated with his mum all the time, but like is really good about her too. And I think that's because even he could see that. Like, she's a bit much, but you know why.
Mm,
Because
yeah,
like Nora's mum is already coming up in the chat as like a bit of an example of the opposite. Um, like Nora's mum is really weird with Nora for seemingly nothing to do with Nora.
yes, yes. Whereas there's at least some basis for this, yeah.
Yeah. But I guess to talk about the other like Wallace's mum stuff, just while we're on the topic of her, because there's all this stuff about like the fussiness or like I guess it was interesting. I definitely when I was reading through it the first time and even the second time, just sort of read it as she's just overprotective and
Mm,
that's all it is. But I guess like I've learnt to trust Lucy's instincts on this. Lucy certainly seems to think it's more than just regular overbearing mother. So
well, but yeah, yeah. But the thing is, it's not anything. Lucy leaves this scene thinking that she's left a good impression, right? It's actually
yeah.
not. sh- I agree. I agree. Like, I don't think there's anything here that means we shouldn't trust Lucy's judgment. She obviously has the right gut feel for it. But it's interesting to me that it's not from anything that happens in the scene. It's just like it's the way that Wallace describes it later that makes it seem to Lucy like it's some
Yeah.
racial tensions.
And that's almost the thing is whether she's right or she's wrong, it almost doesn't matter because like I guess this is the point. Like this is the sort of extra weight that she has to wear as like a racial minority is
Yeah.
that this has been the thing for her since the start. There's that doubt of maybe it is, and she seems quite
Mm,
certain it is. So I'm gonna
yes.
go with her read until there's some reason not to. But yeah, either way, it sort of emphasizes just that extra pressure she has on her at all times.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
because like, yeah, like the chat's just started bringing this up too. But obviously, Wallace's dad was there when he and Lucy first. Well, I think when Lucy first asked him out.
Mm.
Or did she coerce Wallace into asking her out? I can't remember exactly how it went, but like he seemed super psycho or whatever, and it was just like, yeah, this whole thing with her, with his mum is just it is a bit weird, and but I don't know how much to tinfoil about it.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's the kind of thing that we will
Yeah, we'll see.
see. Yeah. Um, so yeah, Lucy is chatting to Mia about all the people who weren't invited, and kind of lays down the law that that's not cool.
um, yeah, and like I think this complements like we were just saying before. Oh, it's great how Lucy is in a spot now where she can give Wallace a second chance, but I think it's also great that she's still in the spot where she won't give Mia any leeway with this. Like she's still identifying something wrong is going on, and like this is the right time to be a hard ass about it, and she
Mm,
is.
yeah, and it's great. It's very fun. I love Crusader Lucy vibes.
Yeah, because like we all saw this at school, right? This sort of exclusionary, like everyone in the class is invited except for 2 or 3 kids or whatever. Um, and I just love that Lucy's the sort of person who used to be that person and is now not putting up with it. Like it reminds me of like Avery going and seeking out Nora and stuff in that class. Like the Kenneteers, as they're getting better, they're funneling that like new power into helping other people who are in their situations.
Mm, mm, yeah, it's good stuff.
And
um,
it, so speak. I
mm,
got to give Mia some credit though. There's this great moment where Lucy sort of corners Mia and is basically like, "You need to like fix this," and Mia's like, "Yeah, I'll make it up to Verona and Andre," and then they agree that the other boys aren't worth doing it because they snap bra straps. Um, but Lucy points out that Mia left Haley out, and Mia sort of snorts and is like, "Oh, you caught that, did you?"
mm.
Which is just like very Verona vibes. Like Mia, I think we've commented on this before, but like I could kind of see why Mia and Lucy are starting to get along because Mia's definitely a bit Verona esque in the way she enjoys playing the game.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. It's very Verona esque. Yeah, I just love. I mean, this is just a very fun scene, right? I love the Lucy vibes. I love how kind of cheeky Mia is being throughout the whole thing. It's great.
Yeah, you're right. Like this chapter at this stage is this is our one where Lucy is establishing her ties to Kennet above. And so we get to see, a lot of the good moments of her doing that successfully, especially after seeing Verona's crack last week.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, Wallace and Lucy catch up the next day at school before PE, where Mr. Beta ignores Lucy almost as much as Verona does. I love that. That's a great line that you put in the script, Elliot. I just want to call it out. It was wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, obviously, we'll get to Verona a lot towards the end of the chapter. Um, but I think this is that really good follow through. I suppose we already talked a bit about like the whole Wallace's mum thing, but this school scene really is what makes sure you understand that we're dealing with like the extra pressure Lucy feels as a minority. Because
Mm.
obviously, like Wallace brings up the whole his mum's fussy, and that just is continuing to eat away at her. And then we're getting all this stuff like Mr. Wallace just ignoring her, and then like the topic of African Americans comes up in their class, and like she notices everyone looking at her.
Yeah.
It's just like yeah, like this is the thing that really makes you feel what we were talking about before, which is just this extra pressure Lucy has on her.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. It really is like an overwhelming kind of vibe. But I do love this one line where Wallace is like, "Oh, don't worry," and Lucy says, "Okay." Lucy replied, worrying, which is just a great, this is a great summation of what's going on there. Like that one response sums up that entire segment in such a beautiful way.
It's a good line.
So next up, Lucy leaves school to go to the School of Hard Knocks, where Bubble Yum is teaching her some goblin fighting skills.
I'm sorry, Bubble Yum.
Well, that's what she's called. That's what her name in the story is, Ellie.
Oh, fine. Yeah.
I
Like
mean,
this
I
is
know
great.
there's no children present here, but that's what the story is called now.
No, we need to keep this this podcast PG.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, speaking of, I love how we just immediately set up the whole like goblin vibe with like this thing opens with Lucy just being made to whack a bag of trash for 5 minutes as it like starts to break and like bin juice goes on her face and shit. Like it just immediately contrasts it to a Guilherme lesson so strongly. You're like, oh okay, we're doing something new here.
Yeah, to me it was so perfect for Lucy that I just thought that she was taking out her frustrations by whacking a bag of trash for a while.
Yeah, and like because the whole whacking the bag of trash thing is to like get her tired because you learn better when you're tired, which is
Yeah.
like what my swimming coach always used to say. Like it's true. And like Guilherme does that in his own way, but it's so different. Like
Yeah.
Guilherme tires her out with like more activities, whereas Bubblegum's just like go smash the trash for 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's great. You're right. It's the same. It's the exact same thing Guilherme would do, but it's just like such a clear difference.
And I think that's what's fun about like Bubs as a teacher. Like we see here in a minute, like when Lucy sort of needs to learn more because she's doing too well, like Guilherme gives her a better opponent or like adds some sort of extra layer to the fight. Bubblegum just throws more enemies at her. Like it's such a great summary of the Fey Goblin dichotomy where like Guilherme gives her more environmental concerns or a more powerful opponent, whereas the goblin just throws more goblins at you.
Yeah, it is a very fun comparison. Like, yeah, Bubbles' motto is just to throw things at a problem until you solve it. And so the problem here is Lucy needs to be tired to just keep throwing more opponents at her. Like, it's a great summation of that.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm easily impressed is calling out the quote that seems to imply that Lucy won the 1v4, which I think is wonderful. So it's also just a great moment of Lucy to be a badass.
Yeah. I love the other moment too where I think like as the fight first starts, like Lucy does, her fairy posing sort of
Mm,
thing. And Bubblegum gives off this energy of like, I mean, yeah, cool, but you could be fighting them already. Like, you know what's cooler than intimidating them with a pose? Bashing their face in, that's pretty intimidating. Like again, I love the balance Lucy's gonna get from having this Winter Fae and this Goblin coach side by side.
mm.
I can't wait to see Guilherme's reaction.
What's the what do you think the Goblin arena will look like if Lucy has a equivalent to the Fey arena?
I mean, I reckon it'd be just swampy and sticky, right?
Yeah.
But like, I mean, I suppose like that's the thing, right? Is like the fairy arena. It's just such a fairy concept of like turning the battlefield into your arena. Like the Goblin arena equivalent is to throw a rock that explodes into 20 small goblins that just cause chaos. I think.
Mm,
I don't think they do arenas. I think they just throw like minions at the problem.
mm. Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. I can kind of imagine an arena that prevents you from leaving it just by the ground becomes so sticky and soggy that you can't get away eventually.
Yeah,
Oh
well,
yeah,
like
or
when
Clawford says a
America.
mud pit. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, remember when America sort of
Oh
stole
yeah.
Avery from the fairy court in Arc 8? Like, I'm picturing something like that. Like something
Yes.
that's more about weighing you down and bogging you.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. So yeah, after the lesson, Bubble coaches Lucy on life.
And I love that this life advice basically amounts to, first of all, just actually listening to her and being like, "Oh, that sucks," and then the actual advice just amounts to, "Well, go do something about it. Like, what are you sitting here
Yeah.
for? Like, go fight for your shit." It's particularly as a lesson. I love that for Lucy because in a way that was almost what she had to unlearn in the fight with Verona in like arcs 12 and 13. Like, that was when Lucy was sort of being a bit stubborn and overly aggressive. And now she's gotten to the point where I think she understands things better. She knows what she did wrong. And so she's got a bit more room to like understand the balance of like, okay, but sometimes like one of you, Lucy or Verona, is going to have to fight for this friendship. And like Lucy's now in the position where she thinks she can do that in the right way. And it's just sort of Bubblegum gives her the kick up the arse she needs to actually go and do that.
Mm, yeah. It's such a fun piece of advice for Lucy. Like, just do it. Just make it happen. I don't know. It's very interesting, but it really does pay off by the end of the chapter. Is she does it? She takes it.
Yeah, like honestly, I'm so happy that Bubs has joined the story, and I know it's only temporary. She makes that clear in this section, but like, she talks about them learning directly from Toad Swallow, and that would be also very fun. But he's got so much baggage in terms of like his dynamic within the story and the town already. Just having this sort of outsider who's tied to him, but like is apart from that quite free, who can just bring a new opinion is so fun. Like
Mm,
yeah, this new trash coach is just a great vibe to complement like what Lucy has in her life.
Yeah. It's
I mean,
great.
honestly, let's be honest, she's doing better than Guilherme in terms of the life coaching part right now.
Yeah,
Like,
I think so. I mean, but in Guilherme's defense, he's in the
he's going through
process
some
of
shit.
dying, I guess, is what you would call it.
Yeah, he's got his own shit going on. Yeah.
So, but I mean, I've been talking about how I think Lucy should ditch Guilherme's tutelage for a while now. So having an alternate teacher to fill that void is probably pretty good.
Yeah, but then she has to go back soon, so I don't know. We'll see.
Another lost mentor.
Yeah, I did wonder how much of an asset it's going to be for Bubblecum that she's female, because that's a good pit to avoid when associated with Lucy. It's not being a fatherly male role model.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean to sort of like talk about the whole goblin versus fairy thing here, because like I think you can map pretty well like a goblin versus fairy to Kennet below versus Kennet above. In that goblin, and that's like we've seen the goblins just naturally gravitate towards the Undercity, and I think it's because the Undercity thrives a bit more on like base instinct to like selfishness sort of vibes, whereas Kennet above is very much the societal layer, and that's very much sort of the divide I see between goblins and fairy to an extent. And so I think it's like actually really important that Lucy is receiving the emotional support she needs right now from like a Kennet below sort of vibe. Like Bubblecum kind of represents Kennet below in a way. Because we're about to go and see her realize that she can use Kennet below to heal wounds in Kennet above as well, with all of the rest of her like fellow students. And I just like this is almost the thing that seeds that idea, is sort of seeing that this selfish, aggressive, just go fight for it mentality can actually be a good thing in the right situation.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that you need that balance, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You can't. It's that classic thing of like being nice and accommodating to people, but also being willing to stand up for getting the things that you want, right? Like, and I feel like it's interesting. Lucy's growth has been to be sometimes to be less blunt and direct, and obviously as a teacher being Guilherme, that kind of tracks. And now she maybe needs to go back the other way a bit.
Yeah, exactly. And I think she was right to step back a bit after the whole kerfuffle with Verona and like arcs 12 and 13 too. But now it's about like refinding a better balance as she sort of steps up. And I love the way this dichotomy is sort of forming in various ways throughout the story, with Kennet below, Kennet above. You've got goblin and fairy. Like there's all these sort of duologies that you can sort of point out and see how they overlap between being like selfish and aggressive versus like sticking to the status quo sort of vibes, not rocking the boat.
Yeah. So it's good lessons for Lucy. So yeah, with Mal's help, Lucy goes and drags Verona out from her domain, forcing her to engage with the Kennet that she's meant to be forming connections with.
I do love how Verona is just like, I thought I'd let you and Avery handle it.
Yeah, she gave it a try and then gave up.
Yeah,
Which
it's a
obviously,
understandable hesitancy. It was like she had like the first the first thing she tried blow up in her face. I can understand why she was like, I'm not doing this. I do love though when she first sort of comes out and Lucy's like, are you okay? And Verona's like, yeah, I'm fine. Like, it sucks to lose a friend, but and Lucy just responds, yeah, it does suck to lose a friend. Like when she goes and locks herself away in her magical space. Even Verona can't fight this one. I was like, that's a got him for the ages. Like it's such a brilliant, like aggressive but not meanly aggressive way for Lucy to like pull Verona out of her own head and start this whole like Lucy's going to fight for their friendship vibe.
Yeah, it's
because it's aggressively kind of calling Verona out on her bullshit, but in a way, even Verona like has to concede is fair. Like it's harsh but fair, which is kind of Lucy's whole energy, I think, coming into this interaction.
Yeah, yeah. It's totally is. It goes Bubbles' advice immediately pays off, and it's wonderful.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I guess I love that. Like something we really need to talk about is Lucy, like raising Verona up with her. Like we already touched on this earlier, but like Lucy sort of realized, Verona is not doing her job, but it almost doesn't even come from that place. Like Lucy's just here because she's worried about Verona and wants to include her. And we're going to see all the stuff with like Kennet below, but I just love the energy Lucy's bringing in this chapter of like no man left behind. Like she's in an opportunity to do good things and she's doing it with everyone. Like she's bringing everyone up with her.
Mm, mm, yeah, yeah. She's great. She's the best Kenneteer. She refuses to accept anything less than the best.
Yeah, and she's doing it to everyone else as well. And like it's worth calling out e- even in her own internal
Mm,
monologue, there's absolutely no like I told you so energy from Lucy here. Like I think Lucy's smart enough to have realized what she did wrong with the Verona and Jeremy stuff. And
yeah,
it doesn't even occur to her that like she had the valid concern of like I don't think you guys are on the same page. And that's where it's ended up going, but that sort of thought doesn't even occur to Lucy. She's just worried about like making sure Verona's in a good space.
yeah, yeah. That's a really good catch. Lucy is just so not interested in the "I told you so"s of the situation, even though she was 100% correct.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess like I try to avoid talking too much about the Verona relationship stuff like after Arc 13, but like you can kind of see how Lucy not putting any pressure on it in that way was just like what Verona needed to actually sort of listen to her in the end here. Especially because like I think Verona's in this space now where she went through all this shit with Jeremy and it's obviously kind of blown up in her face, but in a way like that's kind of good and almost what she wanted, because if you think back to like the what that fight ultimately ended up being about, it was like it wasn't really about Jeremy as much as like Verona felt like she was either being smothered or well, she was being smothered all the time. Like either she was going to be too good or not good enough, and she wanted the freedom to do her own shit. And so it's kind of like the freedom for her to make this mistake is what really mattered to Verona, and the fact that
Mm,
Lucy hasn't like uh, talked to her about it in any sort of parental way is like Lucy demonstrating that she learnt the lesson that Verona was trying to say she needed like back in the day.
mm, yeah,
Like this
yeah,
obviously sucks for Verona, but I think it's like the sort of suck that she wanted. Like she wanted this, yeah. She wanted to be able to make her own mistakes, and now she kind of got
yeah.
that.
And you
Not
can see
ideal,
that
but
there's
yeah,
a growth moment for
yeah,
Verona in this, obviously. Um, yeah, like the way Verona handled the breakup in her last chapter was obviously kind of a clear marker that she had grown. It was,
yeah.
she did okay.
It could have gone worse.
Yeah, definitely. And we saw how it could have gone worse during the scene, I think.
It almost did. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, so yeah, we cut ahead to Lucy and Verona's big plan, which is they've invited their entire class to the Undercity Arcade, which is just like a wild
yes,
thing to do, and I think it's so wonderful. Um, Logan quickly becomes everyone's favorite character by saying the hilarious line, "You're best at carrying things." Which again cracked me up. This was such a fucking funny chapter. I swear there were so many like
yeah.
great laugh lines in it.
Yeah, you're right. Like there's some heavy bits, but overall this chapter is just funny. Um like, goblin coaching is a lot funnier than fairy coaching. Um I do think it's funny though because we kind of as soon as Lucy starts like spelling out her plan, we cut to black, so we don't know what the plan's going to be coming into this. And I was like, "Oh, I wonder what plan it could be that she could possibly talk Verona into it." And then when like you see it in action, you're like, "Oh, this wouldn't have taken much convincing at all." Um
Mm,
like this is such a Verona-esque like crazy big swing to just like fuck up the rules and like go against convention, because convention would tell you don't do this with a bunch of kids who are already starting to become aware,
yes.
and the Kennedy is like, nah, we're gonna do it.
Yeah. And it seems to work perfectly as a plan, right? Like it seems to go
Yeah.
very well.
I mean, the idea of setting up this urban legend of the fucking horror arcade in Kennet is such a funny idea, but also, like, yeah, just we've talked so much about finding this balance between Kennet above and Kennet below, and this feels like it, this is the
Mm,
sort of thing that helps bridge that gap and make them less distinct.
yeah, yeah.
Also, as you said, it's just fucking funny. Like, I love the goblins running this place. Natty's trying to upsell them to the red machines. Biscuit's trying to drug them. Like, for some reason, Biscuit trying to drug children is just always funny. It probably shouldn't be, but it is. Um, yeah, the vibe of this is just so chaotic and fun.
Mm, yeah, yeah. It's good stuff.
Although, practical question.
Mm,
Wallace brings up that like a lot of these games seem like they're ROM hacks, and indeed they're like coded to be different.
mm,
Is that magic, or are there like programmers and electrical engineers like goblins slash undercity denizens? Like,
hmm. Probably partway between the two. But what that does imply, Elliot, that question is that it would be totally possible for us to set up a real world haunted arcade like this. So, you know, let's do it.
I just like I know this is a magic world, so it shouldn't be a concern. But
Mm.
I've really gotten hung up on the practicality of how this
Well,
arcade works.
I mean, I kind of took Wallace thinking they were ROM hacks as innocence maintaining itself.
Yeah, but it speaks to the fact that on some level there has to be like twisted logic in them, and like if an
Mm,
innocent got their hands on it, that would have to manifest as some sort of like reprogrammed thing. And that, yeah, I don't know why I'm so befuddled by this, but this is one of the first times that the magic of this world is just scaring me with it's the practical implementation of it.
mm, yeah, yeah. It'd be fun. I'd love to have a haunted arcade. We should totally set one up.
We should at least get the air hockey running.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, to kick off the haunted arcade, Mia and Haley get into a fun, friendly game of air hockey.
Just, good times with mates.
Yeah, no, I mean it is a good time. It's very fun. It's a fun way for them to hash out their problems and also get punished for being shitty to each other.
I mean, yeah, like like there's this moment where as it's sort of ending, like where Lucy says to the two of them, "This feud you've got, it's mostly hurting yourselves. Let's end it. Call the game off, and you can't be shitty to each other again." Which is just one of those moments where Pale is guaranteeing you can't miss the point that it's making. Like that's
Mm,
specific, like explicitly like spelling out what the metaphor would be here, which is just like this is a game they've set up for themselves, which is just hurting each other.
mm,
Um, and yeah, I actually really enjoy this as a bit of a fun spin on like it's a bit of a trope, I think, to have two characters who are in a fight and they sort of get over it by finally punching it out or whatever.
mm,
And they have their fight, they hurt each other, and then they're like, oh, we can be friends now.
mm,
And it's not a trope I particularly like anyway, but I really enjoy this spin on it of it. Like, I don't know, it's because it is just the same thing, but now it's an air hockey game that tases you. Like it's just so fantastical that it kind of works.
mm. Yeah, yeah. It's well, it doesn't just tase you; it also gives you rat
Sure.
hats and dumps slime on you and shit. But yeah, it's yeah, it's just so it all just works so well. Like both like on the immediate level of the activity that they're engaging in, but also on the level of it's a perfect way for them to solve their issues, right?
Yeah, well, this is like their delivery on the stuff Bubblecum started seeding for us before. Like engaging with this sort of more selfish, aggressive side of you can lead to you healing in other ways. Yeah, like if you're constantly suppressing everything and going full Kennet above, you're creating problems for yourself and giving these kids a trip to the Undercity to indulge in the stupid shit. Like Mia and Haley being able to tase each other for a bit, like let them get just some shit they'd been repressing out of their system, and then they can actually move forward. And like I just fucking love this as a delivery on the Kennet above, Kennet below, like spectrum, which also like is showing how they're healing the wider entities of Kennet above and Kennet below as a whole by bringing the two groups closer. It's just so cool.
Yeah, yeah. It works so perfectly.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. It's such a great moment.
Like because like Lucy extends the idea of like connecting yourself to Kennet above to literally doing that for all of Kennet below. She's also helping Kennet above while she's doing it. Like yeah, just such a huge moment for Lucy as well as the story. Like Lucy's sort of figured out. Oh, she's in the process, I should say, of figuring out this better balance between her Kennet above and Kennet below sides, and she's doing that by helping everyone. She's connecting I just love this. It's so cool.
Mm, yeah, yeah. It all clicks together so neatly. Like this chapter is such a perfect example of Wobber's skill as a writer, because it all is just like everything comes together perfectly.
Yeah, yeah, like yeah. Kenneth above standing in for a bit of like the selfish, violent side of you is just delivered on so perfectly in this scene. That's great.
Yeah. But that's the end of 17.4. Let's get into 17.5 from Avery's perspective. Starts with Avery being woken up by her mum, who wants to have a serious chat, while in the background, Avery's new hand servants prepare her outfit for the day.
These things. Am I the only one who was like kind of terrified of them the first time I read the
No, I had
chapter?
the exact same reaction the first time of like, oh shit, what are these things that are about to attack Avery as soon as her mum leaves the room?
Yeah,
But no, they're
like
friendly.
But I was confused because I was like, you're reading as quickly as you can on your first read, and I'm like, are they some weird goblins? Is this America getting revenge? Like,
Mhm.
I was just, I was like, I don't know what these are, but they're going through her drawers of clothes, which feels like a violation. I was like, I hate this. I was thinking of like the Air What guy. I was like, is this Tomas Witt?
Mm.
But yeah, no. Then it just ends up being, I don't know, some little idiots from Soot Sleeves' kingdom.
Yeah, yeah. It's just little goobers.
And then I to get to like so obviously like Kelsey has woken Avery. Oh no, she's ambushed Avery basically with this thing about like confirming stuff to do with Thanksgiving.
Mm.
And it's a bit like even Avery can't be mad at her for ambushing her like this because it's like when the fuck else is she supposed to do it? Avery has been juggling so many things, so many arrivals and departures that she just literally hasn't given her mum any other opportunities to have this conversation.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think, well, Kelsey's a good enough parent that when she sees Avery pulling away from the family again, she's like, "Oh, I'd better make sure that isn't going too far."
Yeah. No, I love Avery kind of takes her lumps on that one and acknowledges like, yeah, I haven't really. I've been using the old connection blockers a bit much, so this is kind of my own fault. It's very true.
Yeah, like Avery has been juggling a lot of different distinct sort of social groups, and I think her family has been intentionally getting pushed to the bottom of that pile, which that whether or not that's fair is probably a whole separate conversation, but like this is the overcorrection that her mum has to make in the face of that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um
definitely.
but speaking of family, I'm glad Sheridan was here for this. She provides some like much needed comedic relief to the scene.
Mm. Yeah, Sheridan is wonderful in every scene that she's in.
I enjoyed how Kelsey kept being like, Sheridan, if you could stop interrupting, like this is a conversation between me and Avery. And
Mm.
then Sheridan just like kept butting in anyway.
Yeah.
And part of me was like, yeah, well, if you'd made me share a room with my sibling and were then having a conversation with her in that room at like 5 a.m., I'd probably be an obnoxious interrupter as well. Like, I was totally on Sheridan's side for this one.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how all this stuff goes because obviously we're getting set up like all this family stuff.
Mm.
Like the dinner with Connor. Obviously, we're going to get Avery's house on steroids. Apparently, part of the universe's overcorrection for her connection blockers is to triple the amount of family in the house. Um, it's going to be really fun seeing Avery cram like this dinner and her extended family into what is already going to be a stacked weekend.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this weekend. Obviously, there's going to be a lot coming up, but the Avery family reunion is a part I am dreading because I suspect there's probably not that many more opportunities for like grumble interactions in this story, which means it's probably going to be coming up in this next family reunion, which is scary and interesting.
Yeah. And then, because we got like, I love tracking Connor's growth because it's that like, Connor's somebody who's just really bad at getting better, but he seems to want to. And so, like, Avery's dinner with him will be fascinating. And then on the other hand, we've got Declan, who, like, I mean, it didn't sound like things had gotten much better to me, but at least Connor's trying, question mark. Like, oh, there's so much to do with this family reunion. It's going to be great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's gonna be really fun. So yeah, Avery gives her squires a bit of a well, she fires them, I guess, and then talks to their boss, getting a lift with old soot sleeves to school.
I really enjoyed like Snowdrop's sort of jealousy about like when Avery tells them to go away, and then Snowdrop, says, or what she means to say is like, yeah, fuck off. The animal niche is already taken care of. Thank you. We don't need you.
Mm. Yeah, Snowdrop's reaction is pretty funny.
And then sorry, the other thing we get before we actually get to Soot Sleeves, we do get Avery, like we get a glimpse into Avery's like phone and just like how well she's doing at maintaining just this not like large amount of relationships, but extremely like different ones. Like we sort of run the gamut from Fernanda and her sort of amicably putting their friendship on pause until this whole war thing is over. Raquel is just complaining about how catchy the music from this Heathers ripoff is. And then you've got Jude freaking the fuck out about the Kennet plan, which I really enjoyed. Like, it's a really, from a writing perspective, it was this really cool way to just quickly hit like a bunch of points and be like, Avery's juggling a lot of relationships, a lot of different kinds. Like, she's doing really well at her job here.
Yeah, she definitely is. Just keeping up tabs with everybody, making sure everyone's connected. I did love seeing that there were 10 prior messages from Jude. I thought that was fucking hilarious.
It's a great detail.
We learn later that Avery swore him to secrecy from his family, so they already must have thought she's insane because it's not about the Found Kennet thing because he can't have told them. So clearly something funny is going on there. I look forward to seeing the other 9 messages in a bonus material soon. I'm sure we will get that. Avery's text logs would be a great bonus material, I think.
Geez, it'd be a long one though, I think, unless it was omitting a lot.
Yeah.
But like even like to touch on family, like Avery's lowest priority at the moment. Like even Sheridan does have a nice moment here. Like there's this bit where Sheridan, rushes to take the shower first, in this sort of petty moment, but then she does sort of come back out afterwards and is like, "Hey, like you cool? Is there anything you need to talk to me about?" And Avery's like, "No, I'm fine." And then Sheridan just immediately switches back to, "Well, good, because fuck you." But it's just like, even with Sheridan, things are going really well.
Yeah.
Like, I guess, like to jump ahead in the notes a little bit, we're really tracking this upwards trend in how everyone's doing in terms of like maintaining their Kennet above / human connections going into the Found Kennet ritual.
Yeah. Yeah. It's they're doing well, the Kennetiers.
Did notice though, somebody who did not get a text message that we saw was Liberty.
Yeah, the old Liberty and Janine relationships are not doing so hot right now.
Yeah, true. Janine too. That'll be fun. That like Janine feels like it's going to pop off just when we don't want it to.
Yeah. Well, so does Liberty, I suppose. So yeah,
Sure,
back
but
at school.
sorry, in a way, I think Avery expects that something to do with Liberty could explode because Anthem and
True.
America are both crazy.
Yes.
Janine, I feel like she'd write off because it's the benign part of her life, and then suddenly Janine will attack like Nora or some shit.
Yeah. So yeah, back at school, Avery leaves Nora with her sports friends so she can go have a chat with Florin, who has shown up.
Yeah, and obviously like Avery sort of leaving Nora with her friends is this really funny moment because it like this carries forward that Avery's in a good place even further because all of these other sports team members seem to really like Avery and they're like accepting Nora because of it. And it's just like it's this really friendly form of shit stirring. Like speaking of Janine, it's none of the toxic sort of being a shit stirrer. It's like very much they're all just joking around with each other and like being annoying in a friendly way and including Nora in it. It's great.
Yeah. It's a very fun scene. The group is all they're all really giving Avery some great ribbing, which is hilarious.
Yeah. I feel sorry for oh God, I'm not sure how to say it, like Hui, who seems to have picked Janine's side, which is not the correct one. Just
Yeah.
in terms of like your own health and safety.
It's sad that Janine seems to be annoyed at Avery. I don't know.
I'm just worried she's going to take it out on Nora. Like, Nora's still in the closet. That feels like something Janine might fuck with if she's, I don't know. Maybe I'm being unfair on Janine.
Yeah, hopefully Janine wouldn't go that far, surely.
We heard how things went bad for her with the GSA. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll
Anyway,
see.
moving on to Florin, because holy shit, like what a fucking ledge. Like he's really delivering on the Alexander 2.0 hype.
Yeah, I mean, Florin's awesome. He's just so much fun.
He's just so friendly, which is not what I expected coming into this. He's genuinely like, hey, you could have been worse and you're fucking cool. So like, I want to stay on your good side. And like, he's talking about being friends with her like 40 years from now. It's just amazing.
Yeah. I love how Florin is so he doesn't let all this practitioner squabbly shit get in the way of making some good connections, you know? Like he's so above it all, and I really do love that.
I love how he leaves. As he's leaving, he says, "Take care of yourself, dear. King concedes."
Yeah.
And Avery's like, "You're super dorky," and he's like, "Yeah, that's the pot calling the kettle black." Like, just what a champ to just like engage with her on that level. Like, just because I think the thing about Alexander was that smarmy villain you loved to hate. But like he was strife driven and he sort of made problems. Florin, like genuinely doesn't like. Florin's much more interested in peaceful negotiation than sort of Alexander was. Like Alexander wanted to hold stuff above you. Florin, if he sees you as powerful, is more than willing to just like indulge you.
Yeah. Florin, what a champion. I love the favor card that he gives her as well. It's like, it's so stylish and slick and clearly so cool to get a favor from a practitioner. It's like, shit, I don't know. It's some fucking Rumpelstiltskin shit. I love it. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's so like it's such a grandiose way to owe someone a favor. It's like it's just so dramatic. Here is your like one favor card. It's like the golden ticket from Willy Wonka, you know? Like that's how he plays it up. I think this is what makes Florin like such a great sort of foil for Avery as well, and why I hope we do get to see more of him very soon. Because as much fun as like he is here, if I can indulge the part of me that does think he's a despicable piece of shit, you can't help but read like any niceness he gives to Avery as like coming from a place of, oh, she's powerful and like better kept on my side than against me. Like it's not friendship for friendship's sake like it is with Avery. It's I want not to fight you because it would be inconvenient. And I just love that as somebody like, so he's this great foil for Avery because he's just as obsessed with building networks and maintaining connections, but for the opposite reasons.
That's
And I
such a
just think
good call.
it's so fun. Like, that's why I want to see them continue to interact, because they're both doing the same thing for the opposite reasons. It's so cool.
Yeah, Florin is a hero. I don't know. I kind of feel like this is a exit stage left on Florin, at least for a while. Maybe until that favor card gets cashed in.
I hope we see that.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
Florin does basically say, make sure you use this favor by the end of the story now, you hear?
Yeah, and because I mean, this is the thing, right? Like, Sangachi's just started bringing this up in the chat, and I agree. Like, the interesting thing about someone like Florin is he's kind of doing the right thing for the wrong reasons, but that's better than someone like Alexander or Bristow who was doing the wrong thing for the wrong reasons. And it's like getting the bad people to do the right thing for the wrong reasons is like an important first step towards getting people doing things for the right reasons. So that's why I find Florin such a fascinating piece of this puzzle, is that he's somebody who is like a selfish piece of shit, but also one you could work with because you're going to be able to continue to keep incentivizing him to do the right thing, probably. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope that favor comes in soon, because I need to see it. I need to see more of him. He's so fucking fun. Since he was like first introduced, I think he's just leapfrogged to possibly my favorite character in the story.
Yeah, he's awesome. Best fourth Kennet to Florin. So yeah, Avery and Nora head back to her place to hang out and watch a wonderful movie, Gosh Golly Gosling Dodgeball Darling, which I mean just is
such a shit title.
Amazing. It's amazing. It's so fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, we'll get to all the character moments between Nora and Avery and all that shit in a sec. But yeah, let's talk about this movie, because they trick the enemy team into breaking the neck of this goose in order to get them disqualified to win the game. What is the other verse that this is a movie that was allowed to be released that's not seemingly overtly satirical? Either Nora and Avery are the most clueless people ever and didn't notice that this was satire, or this universe is just weird.
It might be satirical. I don't know.
Yeah, but then how did Avery and Nora both miss that? I mean, Avery can be a bit of a dunce at times, but she's not that bad.
Yeah, God. It's bizarre. It's so weird. It sounds delightful, though. I know. Would love to see it.
I just love that, and there's sort of thoughts of, oh, maybe Mussa made this, or it's like a joke Avery makes at Mussa's expense about it. But this is a world where a movie was allowed to be produced where the moral of the movie was just kind of cheaters prosper. It's, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, obviously it's great as well, because mixed into all this ridiculousness is the ability for Avery to tie it to a lot of her own stuff, and it spurs a bunch of thoughts in her, which is just hilarious, because I'm surprised this movie managed to do that for anyone.
Yeah, it's I really hope that in 10 years' time, this is the only piece of Wild Bird media that has been adapted into a TV show or a film. It's, gosh, golly, Gosling, Dodgeball Darling. I just think that would be so fucking funny.
I mean, it's genuinely a brilliant satire of the sports movie genre.
Exactly. I would love to see it.
What's just weird is Avery and Nora didn't seem to think that's what it was.
No, yeah, it doesn't seem like that's what the movie's about.
Although, okay, weird detail from this movie that I want to talk about. So Avery comments that they play an odd dodgeball variant.
Yes,
in this movie.
Yeah.
Where they say, so the eliminated players go out the back, and if they catch a ball, then they get brought back in.
Yeah.
And I want to call this out, because is that not just dodgeball? What's the variant part? That was always a rule when we played dodgeball.
Yeah, I remember.
High school.
So when we played dodgeball, which was not very frequent, because I think it definitely feels like more of a US thing than a thing that we do.
Yeah, but it was a thing we'd play in PE a couple of times a year, I'd say.
Yeah, but so it was like, if you got out, you'd go to the side, and then if your team caught a ball, you'd get to bring somebody back in, right?
Oh no, so we had you had to stand behind the other team, and if you caught a ball on the full that didn't go
Oh,
above a certain height, you could then run back around and go in.
oh, interesting.
I've heard of the one where you catch the ball on the full and you get to bring someone in. But we also had if you threw it through the other team to one of your teammates and they caught it on the full, they got to go back in.
Right, right. There you go. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe you're living in the gosh golly gosling dodgeball darling universe, Elliot.
Well, time to start cheating more, I guess then.
Yeah, cheaters prosper. Find yourself a goose and break its neck, and that will somehow lead to something that you want.
There is a place where my sister has been attacked by geese a couple of times, so I could go there. I know there are geese there.
Yeah, get one, and make it your mascot.
I'll train it on a light. Except I don't want to do dodgeball. I'm going to do handball.
Okay.
Handball's a sport that doesn't get enough film time.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. Handball. That's a classic. Love me some. What do they call it? Some Foursquare? Is that what they call it in the US? Is that right? Have I made that up?
I don't know. Yeah, because there is like an Olympic sport called handball, but it's not the handball that we're talking about.
Yeah. What is it? It's called. It's something like that. I can't remember. Anyway,
Foursquare sounds right.
but that's also, I think, the name of an old social media platform. So
oh, is it?
Maybe I'm getting it mixed up. Anyway, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, the Avery and Nora date.
Yeah, the one that gives the Lucy and Wallace one a run for its money. I mean, because this date is obviously adorable. They're both such nerds. I really kind of appreciate how this story is giving us three very different, like, forms of dating. I suppose. No, well, not even dating, because that wasn't what Verona and Jeremy were doing. Like three different forms of relationships or whatever. Like Nora and Avery are kind of the opposite of what Verona wanted with Jeremy. And I love that, I guess, considering there were like three protagonists, all three of their dating strategies feel so distinct and different. And I'm really enjoying that aspect of this story.
Sorry, I have to go back to handball because I've been looking it up to try and see. Apologies. So it seems like handball as we know it is just in Australia and like, Oceania, whatever you want to call it. Now, there's a thing called Foursquare, which other people are referring to, but that's got a bigger ball. But no, we played handball with usually a tennis ball.
If you were feeling fancy, somebody from your school would upgrade and bring in those pink rubber ones.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a more, hardcore ball for sure. But, a handball did us fine most of the time. And you like hit it with your hand and it has to bounce. And then, you move around in squares.
Did you guys ever play with 4 squares? We used to play it with like 12.
We played with 4. 4 was 4 was like the tournament legal kind of setting. You could play with more, but 4 is like, if you're serious about it, you play in a 4.
Okay, no, we always just play. We to get the whole class in to one thing, so it'd be like all 12 of us, like, and you'd have the full thing where like you'd get knocked down and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, interesting. I'm surprised this isn't a game that has made it to other outside of this region. I'm trying to find a video of
the
it
chicken salt of sports.
Yeah, but it's so good. It was such a fun game. It's legitimately so good. Anyway, I would play handball. I'd play handball right now. But yeah, it's a nice date between Nora and Avery.
Flawless segue.
Thanks.
Yeah. I guess because the interesting thing, like, about these sort of 3 different dating strategies is Avery's is by far the most kind of like all encompassing. Like for Lucy, it hasn't really been a problem that Wallace doesn't know that she does magic yet, because they're not that close. Whereas like obviously Avery and Nora have kind of gone all in and hanging out as much as they can. And with Avery like having so much going on, it's like I just love how openly the 2 of them are communicating about the fact that Avery is clearly into like shady shit, and Nora's giving her the space to be cool with it.
Yeah, it's interesting because this was one of the main things I was kind of thinking about when we were doing the shipping wars between Avery's three potential candidates and why I was on the Janine train was like because of this exact reason, because Avery can't tell her and wanting to, right? Like, and not being able to, and having that kind of barrier there. I don't know. Like, it seems like it's not an issue right now because Nora feels like she has her own things to worry about. But it definitely feels like it could become an issue in the future, which is why I think Geneverine was the primo ship. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, like, uh, certainly a take. I mean, there's other problems with that option. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it'll be interesting to see. Nora is kind of willing to put up with it for now because Avery seems on the level as she can be, and Nora's kind of got her own shit too. But like, this is the thing that would scare me the most about being a practitioner: is at what point do you bring an SO in on it? Because that's such a huge permanent decision. And I just hope for Avery's sake that's not a decision she's forced to make within this story.
Yeah, yeah. We'll have to see. I don't know. It feels very major, doesn't it? And it feels like it's not. I don't know.
Yeah.
I would be cautious about it. But having said that, Nora already is into the witch aesthetic, so she's partway there at least.
Oh, yeah, but then it's like if you break up after that, you've made Nora aware. Like that's like you can't break up and not feel some sort of level of responsibility for her for the rest of your life. Like that would suck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it so far though, it's great. Like I love that they're being so open and communicative about it at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully it's a good sign. So Avery gets ready to head back to Kennet and bumps into Miss, and these two start to chat about what path should be used in the formation of Found Kennet.
I understand the reasons for it not being the promenade, but I'm really sad they didn't even try to talk the Garricks or the denizens of the promenade into it. Like just a quick little town meeting at the promenade, just like, hey guys, any objections to this place being tied to you? And I know bribe the Garricks with some solution to some shit or whatever.
Yeah. It would have been fun, but yeah.
That said, like the stuck in place, I think Miss makes a really Miss / Walbo makes a really good case for how it's actually kind of a better fit for Kennet. Like the promenade is a great example of kind of what Kennet would love to be in a way, but it's not what it is. Like Kennet had, like if you think back to the Kennet that existed at the start of the story, it wasn't this bustling hub of others moving in and out and stuff. It was like this isolationist community where they'd walled themselves in, and the people who came in there were like escaping the world because they had nowhere else to go. And I think the stuck in place is kind of a better representation of that mindset of it is a dead end. It's a place where you go when you fucked up and like you need a way out.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's definitely a good pick, and Mrs. Explanation makes a lot of sense. It just is like, I don't know, it's kind of an acceptance of some of the problems of Kennet, which is realistic maybe and good. I don't know.
Well, there's obviously this added angle that Miss brings up on the sly, which is it can counteract the knotting in a way because it drags people in, and Charles is pushing everyone away. So there's like some interesting angles to it there. But yeah, I mean, I guess I can see the argument for attaching it to a place which is like closer to what it is better long term than like attaching it to somewhere that is what it would like to be but is far away from.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it would have been cool to have the Falling Oak Avenue be attached, just because I think I wonder what that would have looked like. But you're right. It's like it is realistic for the stuck in place to be the place.
And Soot Sleeves is here, and of course she knows Miss.
Yep, Miss knows everybody. It's so validating of the choice that they've made for Miss to be the connection, because Miss literally is just friends with every single other.
Yeah.
Oh shit!
Um,
Nerthstrike has just made a great point in chat that if the Falling Oak Avenue was the one that they picked, it might have made the ski runs be absolutely wild in Canada in winter, which would have been very fun.
well, and so do you remember the stabby kids that were on the promenade, like the little kids with knives that were really
Yeah,
aggro?
yeah,
They're actually from Falling Oak Avenue too. So what's really
yes.
interesting is we set up a prominent third school in that situation. Found Kennet will also have its own school children who are
Oh,
going to give
interesting.
the Undercity a run for its money.
Yeah, who's the more violent school? That will be the competition.
Um, but yeah, no, Miss Knowing Soot Sleeves gave me this, like it reminded me, I think I might have talked about this on one of our podcasts before, but like, growing up in a small town where my dad was one of the like few doctors, whenever you went downtown with him when I was a kid, we'd get stopped at least like 3 times in the shops by people who were like patients he'd seen in the last year or someone he knew through some club. And it was just like, my memory of going downtown as a kid is just usually spending half of it standing around waiting for dad to stop talking to people I didn't know.
Mhm.
And that's what it must feel like going around with Miss. Like if Miss was going to give you a tour of the paths, it'd just
Yeah,
be like everyone knows who she is.
yeah, yeah. She's just so yeah, which like again, it's just a great marker for the fact that that they're doing the right thing by making this Found Kennet and putting Miss in charge.
I'm so interested to see how this works for her. Like, because she's clearly, she's like, I understand why we need to do this, but she's understandably nervous about it, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens to her as the kind of foundational aspect of this area.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
And then and Avery's obviously on her way back to Kennet now too. Like she gives Miss the go ahead to pick the stuck in place, kind of trusts her, which is nice. And
Hmm.
yeah, I mean now we get to see Avery go back, and presumably Avery's going to get to see the Undercity for the first time. That's fun.
Yeah, yeah. God, it's gonna be
I think
so good.
I think Snowdrop's going to like it more than Avery.
Yes, almost certainly.
But yeah, I don't know, like because I think this was a really fun chapter just to sort of talk about the thing as a whole because this chapter really established how well Avery is doing in Thunder Bay. We basically spent the whole chapter being like Floren's her enemy, and even he likes her. She's got school friends. She's got all her practitioner friends. Her family life is going quite well in Thunder Bay, but there were kind of doubts cast on Kennet, like Avery's going back there. She's going to have to kind of meet up with Connor, but she doesn't really want to. Like, I guess I think it's interesting that we sort of had 3 chapters in a row where, at least for like, half of Verona's and both of the other two, it's been how are these guys going, establishing their Kennet above connections. Verona didn't do so hot. Lucy has dragged her and Verona out and absolutely knocked it out of the park. And then Avery's this interesting third one where it's like she's doing fine outside of Kennet, but there's reason to doubt how she's going to do in Kennet itself.
Mm,
And that's going to be a fascinating angle as she heads back into Kennet.
mm. Yeah, yeah. I'm really excited for this stuff that's coming up. There's just a lot that's going to be
Yeah.
really popping off. Now,
Yeah, like just for Avery in and of herself, we've got all the shit with her family,
yes,
her
the
meeting
Kelly
all of the
family reunion for sure
yeah,
is going to be fun.
her meeting all of the Undercity people and like getting her feet sort of wet in the practice there again. Snowdrop meeting up with Cherry Pop and going to the arcade. Like there's so much to
Mm,
do. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, yeah. It's going to be fun. We'll see how it goes in the next few chapters. Yeah, Elliot. So I just noticed that somebody wrote the words
Yeah.
"everyone human connection" in the notes, and it was in purple, which usually means that I wrote it, but I don't remember writing it or what it means.
No, I wrote that. I had the thought halfway through the episode, so I jotted down. I had to write it real quick, so I didn't get a chance to change the color.
What does it
That's fine.
mean?
We've already discussed it.
Okay, everyone human connection. Cool. All right. Well then, let's pull out some discussion question answers because we've been running a discussion question for the past fortnight, and we time to revisit those answers. The question was, what animal mask would you choose for an honorary Kennetier and why?
Yeah, we got a bunch of really fun answers to this.
Yes, I think Melissa and Bracken were two of the most popular
Yeah,
picks.
Melissa got a lot. Yeah.
Melissa got put on blast.
I do want to start though with someone who did something a bit different, which is Shin7, who came up with this really interesting idea of rather than pick the Kenneteer and then choose a mask for them, they tried to decide what sort of animal would complement the trio and round them out as a like quartet is the word I'm looking for. So, what sort of animal would make a good quartet, and then who then suits that mask? And so they went into like a bunch of stuff about how like the fox, the cat, and the deer, they're all animals in Canada that are quadrupeds. And like all this diet stuff I won't spell out, but basically they decided that a boar probably rounded out the quartet the nicest.
Mm.
Like it's a mammal that lives in Canada. It's mostly herbivorous but can eat meat. Like anyway, so with the boar in mind, they ended up circling back around to Melissa, just because like a boar can be like bristly and not particularly well liked, very stubborn. They'll keep going even after grievously wounded, but you know, in the right circumstances, like pigs are very loyal pets and like can be really great. And
Mm.
I just really like that interpretation.
Yeah, yeah. I thought that was really cool. Starting with the mask that will balance out the kind of group, and then seeing who fits it, and realizing that yeah, of course it's Melissa.
It was just Melissa anyway.
It was Melissa again. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, most of our answers were Melissa related, but I appreciate that Shin Seven got there a different way.
Yeah, I liked Wake Woke Wake gave Melissa the goose, which I think was perfect, especially
Yes.
given the Gosh Golly Gosling connection. Yeah,
But also, like, because geese, like, they're loud and obnoxious, but also they can like they're kind of graceful when they're
yeah,
not when you're just like looking at them.
yeah,
And she used to be a dancer.
yeah, very good stuff.
I also want to call out so Propaganda Pagoda actually did an answer that was a response to Shin Seven's. So they took Shin Seven's idea of like finding the animal first, and they actually picked the brown bear, because it's another four-legged mammal in Canada that mostly eats plants but can eat meat. And so they're like, oh, if we're doing a brown bear, then I want like Mama Bear Jasmine.
Mm,
Um, but then they changed their mind within their own comment and were like, "Oh no, we want Papa Bear Matt. Like he's
mm,
already a practitioner. He's like, you know, he is kind of cuddly and nice, but also like, you know, if you came near the Kenneteers, if you threaten his kids, he's fucking ferocious. Like, I low key love the idea of giving Matt a bear mask as he starts to cross the line back into becoming a practitioner.
yeah, yeah. I love the matte bear mask thought. It's a really good one, I think. There was another one that had the bear. Oh yes, it was Wake Woke Wake again for Bracken, giving Bracken the
Yeah.
bear. Which I think makes a lot of sense.
um, we also got I'm easily impressed, who gave Melissa the donkey mask because she's stubborn and a bit
She's
of an
an
ass.
ass. Yeah. I
But
mean
you
that's
know,
yeah.
also helpful.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Very helpful. Yeah, good at carrying things, I guess. Similar to Bracken.
yeah, she substitutes Bracken in. Yeah,
Bracken also probably could be a donkey, to be honest, and that really reaffirms how good of a match they are for each other.
um, then they also gave Raquel the blue jay mask, which was interesting, just because blue jays apparently they collect shiny things, and you know Raquel's a collector, but also like birds sort of represent freedom, and you know getting Raquel out of her family would be you know a big part of her becoming a Kenneteer.
Mm, yeah.
And they gave Thea the caracal, which was an animal
Yes.
I had to look up because
Not
I
a
had not
bird
heard
that
of
I
that.
was super familiar with, but it's a bird that seems
No,
to.
so it's actually a cat. I
Oh.
miswrote that in the notes. I
Oh.
th- I'm easily impressed as it eats birds, and I misunderstood the way it was phrased and thought they were birds that eat other birds, but it's like a mountain lion looking thing.
Oh yeah, it's kind of Lynx esque.
Yeah.
I'm going to post an image of it because when I googled caracal, the expression on this fucking cat's face looks exactly like how I picture Thea. Wait, my image didn't post.
I'm not
Okay,
seeing it.
never mind. Sorry,
Um,
folks.
But yeah, anyway, caracals they hunt like birds that are in flight, and Thea cuts the wings off of kids' souls. And she's got that kind of cat-like selfish behavior at times, and she plays with her food.
Yeah, I think it tracks, especially if this image posts, then everyone can see the expression on this cat's face. Anyway, If you Google
Um,
Caracal, it's like the second or third image. It's just like this very like, I can picture Thea just having this kind of deadpan expression, looking straight at the Kennetiers with being upset at them. And I mean, it seems like it's appropriate for a Caracal.
I want to rapid fire through one last answer just because this person gave us a bunch of musks but didn't specify why. Um, and I thought that was fun. So they gave Bracken the skunk because he makes bad first impressions. Melissa the pit bull because
That's
they're
harsh.
fierce but can be nice. Liberty got a duck because they're protective of others but also kind of weird. Zed gets a crow because he's smart and he likes shiny technology things. And Louise gets a possum because it would be funny.
Yeah, some good stuff. Some good stuff.
I do like the idea of somebody else getting a possum mask.
Yeah. Yes. So I think that's all of them. Was there any other ones that we want to pull out? I think that was all the ones that I saw.
Yeah. That's all the ones that stuff I'd written about.
Yeah, perfect. So we have a new discussion question for the next fortnight, which is taking us back to the idea of like where do you draw the line with the people that you let into your community, I suppose.
Yeah, because we didn't see too much of that this week because I think the focus was really on the Kennetiers' relationships heading into this ritual.
Yeah.
But it almost certainly come back to the fore as we really get cracking on this ritual. Like what can we forgive and forget, basically?
Yeah. So the question is there any other in Kennet that you think is irredeemable? Do any of them need to do more to atone for their previous misdeeds? I kind of, it doesn't necessarily have to be another in Kennet, I guess. I'm kind of just curious to see, like, where's the line for people? Who's on one side of the line and who's on the other side?
Yeah. Also, just Charles, like you don't need to put Charles. I think we all know where he stands on this.
Yeah.
Unless you have a hot take, like if you're one of the few people who agrees with me that he actually is redeemable, chuck that in. But yeah, I've just wanted to get in before we get a bunch of people saying I don't think Charles is very nice.
But yeah, you can leave your Charles-centric answers in our discussion thread, which we'll link to
And
the show
others.
notes down below, and others, I suppose, if you have to.
Yes, and don't forget to check out our Twitter at PowerReflectCast, as well as hilarious memes. We'll also be posting any updates on that live stream that we mentioned.
Yes, all packed up 1.5, a bit paled up within the pale, which is such a dumb name.
Almost
and I
got
absolutely
through
love
it.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Yeah, I mean, stay tuned for more stuff for that. It'll be quite a delightful thing. If you want to support this show or any of the other shows on the Duff Media Network, the first place to go is to duffmedia.com. You can check out all the shows and all kinds of stuff.
The View from Halfway Down has 2 episodes out now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm having a lot of fun going through and like rewatching the episode and then listening to Seb and Alex talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. You can support those shows by going to the Duff Patreon, patreon.com/duffmedia, and becoming a patron and getting access to all kinds of bonus content like extra shows.
Mm-hmm. We'll be releasing one of the episodes of our other bonus show very soon, and then as we mentioned, soon we'll have a very special episode for that show that I can't wait to do.
I'm terrified.
Speaking of Patreons, though, don't forget to stop by Wildbow's Patreon, patreon.com/Wildbow.
Yeah.
He obviously, just like Sheridan, we need to increase his allowance, and you need to donate to his Patreon to do it.
That's good. I was going to say, unlike in the Otherverse movies, cheaters don't prosper here.
That's good.
So support Wildbow legitimately through his Patreon.
I think that's better. We'll go with that one.
Okay. Well, I like Jaws. I like the increasing the allowance. I think that was good. Wildbow's been doing some good things lately and treating us all nicely. So, you know what? Allowance.